Welcome to the Project Censored Show. I'm Mischa Geracoulis, Project Censored's managing editor and guest host for this segment. Joining me today is privacy expert, attorney, activist, and author, Heidi Boghosian. Heidi Boghosian is the executive director of the H.A. Musty Foundation for Peace and Justice. She's also an advisory board member for the Georgetown Center on Privacy and Technology, as well as the Media Freedom Foundation. Heidi has led several civil liberties and social justice organizations, including the National Lawyers Guild. She's a founding co-host of the original Law and Disorder radio show on WBAI, Pacifica, and podcast. And last, but certainly not least, Heidi is a Project Censored judge. Heidi, welcome to the Project Censored Show.
I'm delighted to be here, Mischa. Thank you.
Delighted to have you and delighted to talk about your new book. First and foremost, congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
It certainly drops at a most opportune time, given the state of our constant connectivity and AI craze that we're in. So I'd like to start by asking you, what's the backstory on the book? What led you to want to write the book now? And how does it meet this current moment?
I wrote Cyber Citizens because the conditions threatening our democracy have changed dramatically and very quickly. But our defenses to threats have not changed. We live in a world where the lines between culture, online and offline life have all but disappeared. Elections, as many know, are shaped on social media. Conspiracies that were once whispered in fringe corners now go viral on TikTok. We have not kept up as computer users. Most users may have sophisticated devices, and many of them, but they're not equipped with the knowledge needed to understand how these digital systems work or how they are being manipulated on a daily basis. One such reason is a phenomenon called truth decay. And evidently in a recent poll, many Americans are literally unable to tell the difference between truth and fiction.
Okay.
You think of the 2016 and 2020 elections, where foreign disinformation campaigns use bots and ads to drive wedges between Americans. We see increasingly polarizations in our society. But these foreign actors didn't need to hack our voting machines. They literally hacked our minds. Another example was in 2021, when Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen revealed that the company knew its algorithms were promoting hate, violence, and misinformation, but did nothing because, as many of us know, outrage is good for consumer and user engagement. So the snappier, the more salacious the headline, the more we want to stay on that topic and read more, creating the bubbles that we hear about.
Mm-hmm.
That's not just a social media platform problem. It's a democracy problem. Hacker and cybersecurity expert Peter Mudge Zatko, former head of security at Twitter, testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee on Data Security on Capitol Hill in 2022 that Twitter execs put their profits ahead of security. And we know this is basically the norm for big tech, but it leaves the door open to infiltration by foreign agents and hackers, malicious hackers. He said that Twitter leadership was misleading the public, the lawmakers, regulators, and even its own board of directors. And, fortunately, we have a few bold whistleblowers that do come forward with this kind of information, but it's not enough. Everyone needs to be vigilant. So I felt it was important to give people a framework for understanding the many threats and also a toolkit for action. civic action. We're constantly told to be cautious online, but we're not told why. We're told our data, our personal data, is valuable, but not how it's being used against us. We're told democracy is in trouble, but not how to defend it in digital spaces. So I'm trying to connect those dots and make the case that protecting U.S. democracy today means becoming informed and empowered cyber citizens.
Hugely important. So, okay, let's talk about the fundamentals. What is cyber citizenship and what is digital literacy? Could you explain those two terms?
Yes, and I'll also touch on cyber hygiene because that's
Mhm.
part of digital literacy. Cyber citizenship is the practice of engaging responsibly, critically, and proactively in digital life. It's the idea that being a good citizen in these days does not stop at the ballot box. It extends to the ways you act, interact, and protect yourself online. And by protecting yourself, you're helping protect the entire ecosphere. But it also means understanding that you have rights in digital spaces and you can advocate for the kind of tech future that you want to live in. Digital literacy is the skill set that makes that possible. It goes beyond knowing how to post on Instagram or reset your router. It includes media literacy, which is your field, Mischa. For example, can you tell if a photo has been doctored? It includes privacy literacy. Do you understand how tech companies collect, store, and share your personal identifying information? And it includes, importantly, civic literacy. Do you know how misinformation campaigns work or how to spot a bot, for example, on Twitter? Here's an example. After the Dobbs Supreme Court decision reversing Roe v. Wade, many people who search online for abortion services were unknowingly targeted by anti-abortion centers that use paid ads and location tracking to steer them away from medical care. Someone with strong digital literacy skills might recognize the warning signs of a, quote, crisis pregnancy center online and then tell others about the deception. Another example is the students in Utah who launched a campaign to remove facial recognition from their schools.
Wow.
Used encrypted apps to organize, read up on surveillance law, and lobbied their local officials. So that's an example of cyber citizenship in action. It's not about tech for tech's sake. It's about using knowledge and digital tools to uphold democratic values.
Amazing. Thank you for clarifying that. That makes so much sense. It's actually it inspires hope. So, you know, the book starts with a section called Back to Basics, focus on civics education, which you've just touched on. In the US, civics education is on the demise. And I'm wondering, how does that factor in to our actions and decisions online? You spoke about it a bit, but maybe go a little deeper if you would.
As most people know, in the 1960s, civics education in classrooms, which was required all across the country, were gradually replaced by standardized testing. And along with that, instead of analytical, thinking and developing skills that would help young people learn how to approach problem solving in the future, gave way to a regimented mentality that over the years began to value deference to authority. I have, and I write about this in the book, a great concern about the presence of junior ROTC across the nation. The New York Times did a great analysis a couple of years ago of the number of schools that were actually automatically enrolling students in junior and high school into JROTC classes without their permission. And these are typically taught by law enforcement or military type instructors with a very regimented sense of hierarchy and showing deference to powerful figures in charge. And thus goes away sort of creative thinking and an open-minded
Questioning.
questioning. You know, kids in these programs are often afraid to stand up to the leader in charge of the classrooms. So I think the collapse of civics education in the U.S. has left a dangerous vacuum. It's more than a shared understanding of how our government works, how laws are made, or what rights we have. It's about avoiding the public manipulation, the manipulation by private and powerful actors of public opinion. And it becomes harder to resist these forces. In the digital age, that kind of manipulation happens very quickly. During the 2020 election, we recall false claims about mail-in ballots being fraudulent.
Mm-hmm.
They spread rapidly on social media, and many people believed those claims because they didn't understand how mail-in voting is secured, or it has been a reliable method for decades. Now, a basic civics education could have helped people ask critical questions like who oversees the elections, what safeguards are in place, who benefits from undermining trust. And that goes to the issue of who are the powerful forces that are seeking to control and manipulate American thought. There's also the misrepresentation of the First Amendment online. People often claim free speech to defend, as you know, hate speech or disinformation on private platforms, not realizing that the First Amendment protects us from government censorship, not from moderation by companies. So this misunderstanding fuels outrage and discredits legitimate calls for platform accountability. I think in sum, the importance of civics is that it teaches us how to verify information, how to participate meaningfully, and how to recognize power dynamics, skills that are now indispensable and necessary in digital life. If we want people to be critical consumers of information, we have to start by giving them the civic foundations that make critical thinking possible.
Could not agree more. And you're reminding me of a study that I recently read that was done by the Annenberg School at UPenn. And it was a civics education study of multi-generational Americans. It was conducted over months in 2023. And the result, well, one of the questions that really stuck out to me and applies here was the question around the First Amendment. Only barely a quarter of the respondents understood what the First Amendment stands for, what a free press is, what free speech is. Yeah, I mean, that just speaks to the importance of your book, the extreme timeliness. Heidi, I want to step back. You mentioned AdTech. What is that, and how does that contribute to the demise of democracy?
AdTech stands for advertising technology. It's the invisible engine behind much of the internet, and that refers to the complex network of tools and systems that collect and store our data and use it to target us with personalized ads. It's not just about selling shoes, though. Ad tech has become a potent tool for shaping political beliefs, spreading disinformation, and dividing people based on highly personalized data profiles. One of the most well-known examples is Cambridge Analytica.
Mm.
This company in the UK harvested data from millions of Facebook users without users' consent. And it used that data to micro-target voters with fear-based political ads. And just as we were talking about engagement a moment ago, with sort of hyperbolic, extremist headlines appealing to people and their emotions, fear is a driving force in how a lot of these systems work in terms of political persuasion. So some of the ads were designed to suppress turnout among African American voters. Others played on racial resentment to rally support for Donald Trump. That kind of manipulation is difficult to detect, and it's even harder to regulate. Another example is the use of so-called dark ads on Facebook during the Brexit campaign. These were hyper-targeted political messages shown to specific users and not visible to the broader public, or to journalists, or to watchdogs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that kind of transparency means we don't know the full scope of how people have been or are being influenced. The bottom line is this: AdTech turns our digital behavior into political vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Undermines the idea of a shared public square where everyone sees the same facts and can debate ideas openly. Instead, we are receiving personalized realities and invisible influence campaigns that are often driven, no surprise, by profit, not truth.
Absolutely. Yeah, no surprise. You were speaking about fear. You mentioned the extremism, the hate that's so apparent, and how in the book you've talked about how it's obviously migrated online. Obviously, that's horrible. But could you explain a bit more about why exactly that is such a problem?
So when extremism and hate move online, they scale. What was once whispered in fringe meetings can now reach millions of people with a single click. The internet, and especially social media, has become, as you know, a recruitment tool, an organizing space, and really a megaphone for extremist groups. So their ideologies don't stay reserved in private digital forums. They spill into also real world violence, harassment, and systemic threats to democracy. You may remember the 2019 mass shooting in New Zealand, Christchurch, New Zealand, where the gunman live streamed the massacre on Facebook, posting his manifesto that was filled with things we see in extremist conversations and content online, memes, inside jokes with white supremacist messaging.
Dog whistling.
Yeah, dog whistling. His posting created a copycat effect. Subsequent mass shooters in El Paso and Buffalo echoed the same rhetoric and tactics. So online forums don't just allow these ideas to be brought to the general public, but they're circulated, they're gamified so that younger people playing games see these permeate their games. We also have the rise of what's called the manosphere. It's a cluster of online spaces where misogynistic and anti-feminist ideologies thrive. What starts as toxic dating advice or body shaming can escalate into full-blown radicalization. The 2018 Toronto van attack was carried out by a man aligned with so-called incel ideology, which he absorbed and engaged with online. So these spaces normalize violence and present it as a form of justice or retaliation. And then the problem is compounded by algorithms that reward sensationalism. Hate and fear generate clicks, so the platforms elevate this content even when it violates their stated policies. And that gives extremist groups an advantage in shaping narratives and influencing vulnerable audiences like kids looking for a community online. I think that the migration of extremism online erodes public safety, corrodes social trust, and undermines our democratic principle of pluralism. It doesn't just radicalize individuals, it polarizes, once again, entire communities.
Mm. Thank you so much for explaining all of that. That detail is really useful. Could you talk a bit about digital hygiene and the ways that we can maybe push back on some of this or protect ourselves or kids?
The term digital hygiene, it's really similar to protections we take in the analog world, brushing our teeth, locking our doors at night, um, protecting our children, our resources. Um, Basically, digital hygiene refers to those everyday practices that keep our devices, our accounts, and our networks secure. They're regular actions that aim to prevent larger problems down the line and that do prevent larger problems. So that when millions of people fail to practice good digital hygiene, risks to our cybersecurity infrastructure compound and become threats to national infrastructure, corporate networks, government systems, as well as individuals. Remember the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack in 2021, where hackers gained access through a compromised password for a virtual private network account. 1 week password, as this shows, likely reused or never updated, easy to guess, led to a major fuel disruption across the eastern United States. Panic ensued, flights were delayed, and the company paid millions in ransomware. And then there's also the issue of cost to reputation and trust. So this becomes a systemic vulnerability when people are lazy and don't take the basic precautions to protect their devices and networks. And that's especially so for school systems, hospital systems, government agencies. I don't know about your audience, but on a monthly basis, I get notifications that some entity that I once visited or gave information to has been.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I mean, you're just making me think that one person's failure to upgrade their password or maybe even do the updates on their devices, it can affect the other people who are on the network with them or in a company or in a household.
Course, and think of all the hundreds of thousands of pieces of private information about students that are then made vulnerable, sometimes sold on the dark web.
Oh, yeah.
I think the takeaway is that digital hygiene needs to be seen as a form of civic responsibility,
Hmm.
cyber citizenship, updating
Mm.
software, using multi-factor authentication, spotting false emails and attachments and not opening them. These seem tedious because we're not used to doing them, but these are frontline defenses in a much larger battle that really has implications for national security.
So amazing. And it's so good to hear you spell all of this out because it's what we all need to hear. I don't think that we all practice the digital hygiene that we should be. I've really tried to step up my game lately. So in our last minute or so, is there do you have any top tips? I know you've just reeled off some things that we all should be doing, but is there anything else that, practical tip that we could take away from this?
Well, hopefully, if listeners want to read all my detailed suggestions, you will read the book. But the basic things are use passwords that are not easy to guess and don't use them across all your platforms and
Mhm.
accounts, especially financial ones. Use privacy protecting tools, install browser extensions like Privacy Badger or uBlock Origin to block trackers. use Signal, as I know you and I do, Mischa, or Proton Mail for encrypted communication, with the caveat that if the government subpoenas some of our communications, even on encrypted platforms, they may have to turn some of that over. But it's a huge improvement over other more commercial email services. Always set up two-factor authentication on your accounts. Change your passwords frequently. Subscribe to digital rights organizations. My favorite, of course, is the Electronic Frontier Foundation. They have a marvelous website, Mozilla Foundation. And talk about these things with your friends and your colleagues. Share information. Hold a crypto party where you teach each other how to do different things. And there's no shame in being unknowledgeable as long as you seek help.
Oh, agreed. I mean, your book would be just, the center of a book club. It would just have such far-reaching effects. Heidi, how can we get in touch with you? How can we learn more about your work? How can we find your book?
A little website, HeidiBoghosian.com. And I'm about to get a Proton email account. I will put that on the website soon. But I always love to hear from people, and I think we're all in this together, and we need to take advantage of everyone's skill sets.
Agreed, 100%. And you're right. I mean, we are in this together. It's the only way we're going to get through. Heidi Boghosian, thank you so much for your time, for your attention, for your wealth of knowledge. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Mischa. Have a great day.
You too.